Hello, my name is Ian and I am a tutor at Chegg. Today we are going to be talking about the quantity theory of money. So the quantity theory of money comes from the idea of monetarism, so it's pretty important you understand what that is. So monetarism is the idea that GDP, which is the gross domestic product, will grow steadily, the money supply grows steadily. In other words, it's the idea that inflation depends on how much money the government prints. So if the money supply increases, so the government prints more money, then inflation increases. So the less money the government prints, the lower the inflation. The more money the government prints, the higher in the inflation. The quantity theory of money states that there is a direct relationship between the quantity of money in an economy and the prices of goods and services. So to understand this, you really need to understand this idea called the velocity of money. So before we really get into that, money is like any other commodity. So commodities are something that can be bought or sold. So the more of that commodity there is, may it be shoes, chairs, sofas, money, the marginal value decreases. Marginal value is a pretty fancy term. So what does that mean? Marginal value or marginal utility from you buying the thing is additional satisfaction a consumer derives from consuming one more unit of a good or service. That's basically what marginal is, an additional unit of whatever that particular marginal application may be, because there is a lot of different marginal applications in economics. So, this ties in with the idea of law of diminishing utility, because as there is more dollars in the economy, its value goes down. So the law of diminishing marginal utility states as someone increases their consumption of a good or service, keeping the consumption of other goods and services constant, so there's no change in the consumption of any other goods that they may buy, um, there is a decline in marginal utility for each additional unit consumed. So this graph over here, it nicely sums up what the law of diminishing marginal utility is really saying. So if we were to change this to money, if there's a low amount of money, there's a high marginal utility associated with it. Everyone will want it, and they will feel good for each additional unit of money they get. So a dollar, an additional euro, additional yuan, whatever it may be. However, if the government prints a lot of money and there's a whole lot of it that everyone has, it's not going to be viewed as valuable anymore. Therefore, if there's a high quantity of money, there will be a low marginal utility, so it won't be viewed as worth as much, which is essentially inflation, the devaluation of the dollar, while there's an increase in the overall price of goods and services. So I mentioned this thing called velocity of money. And before we get more into that, let's state the law or the definition of the quantity theory of money. It is the direct relationship between the quantity of money in an economy and the prices of goods and services. So the velocity of money is based off of that, which is the ratio of nominal gross domestic product to the money supply. So, in case you don't remember what nominal gross domestic product is, it is the value of all final goods and services produced in an economy during a given year, calculated in the current year in which prices are given. So, if we had real GDP, the difference would be it'd be calculated at a base year, so some year other than the one with the current prices. So, what does all this mean? The ratio of GDP to the money supply. Oh, that sounds horrible. So, velocity is the measure of how many times a dollar turns over per year between buyers and sellers. So, if I tip you $5 for your wonderful service at a restaurant or something like that, and you go out and spend those $5, and then the person you spent those $5 on spends those $5 and so on. That is the velocity, and however many times it changes hands in that year is the velocity. So the way that we calculate the velocity of money is this nice little equation down here, which is called the Fisher equation, where it is money multiplied by velocity of money equals the aggregate or the average price level times this is supposed to be a y, but I mistyped and have a t there. This is supposed to be something else, so let us change that so you don't have any more confusion. So it's money times the velocity of money equals the aggregate or average price level times the real gross domestic product. I apologize for that little typo there. So if your teacher asks you what the basically what the velocity of money is, in the less fancy terms, it was how many times a dollar turns over, goes hand to hand over a year between the buyers and sellers. And the Fisher equation, this is only part of what the quantity theory of money is. So I'm not going to go over an applied example of that, but this is how you calculate the velocity of money, which is part of where the quantity theory of money comes from. Additionally, it comes from this idea called the equation of exchange, which, as I have typed out, basically means the amount of money times the velocity of circulation equals total spending. So I have that if an economy has $5 and they spend 10 times a month, then the total spending is $50. If an economy has $3 and they spend 5 times a month, then the total spending would be $15. If the economy had $1 and they spent 5 times a month, then the total spending would be $5. It's just that general idea. So whatever the total amount of money in the economy is, times the velocity of circulation, so how many times it turns over. However, this idea of the quantity theory of money has some criticism. So you'll notice that the velocity of money is considered to be constant. But the problem with that is, in reality, people will sporadically spend, so it's not constant. Like, I might decide that I'm not going to buy any new teapots for the next week. But then I see this really nice teapot, or maybe somewhere I buy them from puts them on sale, and I decide to buy it anyway. That would be a more sporadic way of me spending money. Therefore, the dollars turned over more than someone might have predicted based off of how the economy seemed to be going before. So, as a quick sum up of everything we just talked about, the quantity theory of money, again, is the direct relationship between the quantity of money in the economy and the prices of goods and services. So the more money there is, the higher the inflation will be. And it came from the idea of monetarism. And you can tie inflation in with the law of diminishing marginal utility, which is why prices go up. And that is because if you don't have a lot of money, then it's seen as valuable. And since it's valuable, you can buy more of something at a lower price. For example, back in, I don't know, maybe 1910, you could buy a loaf of bread for 10 cents. Now you'll be lucky to find it for $2 or $3, depending upon where you go. So that would be an example of inflation, because we have much more money in our economy now than we did in 1910. So that is our law of diminishing utility. We calculate the velocity of money with the Fisher equation, which is money supply times the velocity of money, which equals the average price level times the real gross domestic product.